Hello and welcome to the video recording for the Week 7 article, which is titled How Features of Educational Technology Applications Affect Student Reading Outcomes, a Meta-Analysis. So I know that some of you might be thinking, oh, meta-analysis again? We just read a meta-analysis last week, and I understand your concern. This is actually the only other meta-analysis that we will read throughout the semester, and then we'll get to more traditional studies beginning next week. There are several reasons why I selected the study, knowing that you already read a meta-analysis last week. First off, when I was looking at articles to select from during the course of the semester, I really wanted to pick a very broad representation of topics across educational technology and really across education in general, and that would span various grade levels and also various disciplinary levels. So even if you don't necessarily teach reading yourself, certainly there are things that I believe you'll be able to extract from the article that do span multiple educational areas. Secondly, and kind of related to that, the ability to read is a very critical component in terms of a person's success in education in general, and because level of education is also tied to income levels throughout a person's lifetime, it means that the ability to read is also tied to a person's ability to succeed in life. So schools spend a lot of time and effort trying to figure out how to get kids up to sufficient reading levels, and so it becomes everybody's problem and issue because it is a societal kind of thing. So we all basically have a stake in the success of people in terms of their ability to read. Also, schools spend an awful lot of money on technology-based programs that are designed to help improve students' reading levels, help teach them to read, help differentiate learning, and so on. So one of the questions that sometimes is failed to be asked is whether the programs that they're spending money on are really effective. Are we spending our money wisely when using a variety of different types of reading related programs within the curriculum? And since that has a taxpayer tie to it, it means all of us should be inherently interested in the answer to that question. The programs that are specifically identified in the meta-analysis are programs that are used in a lot of our area schools, with a couple of exceptions, but I think for those of you in particular who teach at the elementary level, but certainly some of you who teach at the secondary level as well, some of these applications will sound familiar to you. And one other thing I think is important to note is that Robert Slavin, who's one of the authors of this particular article, is very well respected in the field of educational technology. He's actually an educational psychologist, so his area is tied to learning and instruction more generally, and he has published very, very broadly and widely, including hundreds of studies and also multiple books. So I think it's important to at least sometimes be able to read studies that come from people who are very prominent in our field, and this is certainly the case for Slavin. And then another reason that I selected this particular article is that early on in the article, he talks a little bit about the Clark versus Cosma debate that originated in the 1980s when technology was really in its infancy in schools. And that debate continued for about 10 years, and other people kind of got on board and provided their own input with regard to that debate. You'll read more about it when you get into the article, but I think it's important for you to be aware of that particular background as you think about the role technology has or might have in educational settings. And then the last reason for selecting this particular study is that the types of programs that are discussed in this meta-analysis rely very heavily on data. Data that are collected about student performance, data that is either used by the program or used by teachers in conjunction with the program itself to be able to provide instruction at the level of the learner. And over the past several weeks in class, we've talked a lot about the role of data-driven decision making, how it's used, what we can actually learn from that information, and so on. So I thought the tie back to the data-driven decision-making component of the different technology resources was also a good fit for the class as well. There are 4 broad types of applications that the authors identify in terms of reading instruction. So the first one that they name, they call supplemental technology, and this is a type of application in which the students are receiving their primary reading instruction within the classroom by the teacher, but then in addition to that are using some technology-based resource on top of that more traditional instruction. So the authors identify actually 4 specific programs by name that they're lumping into this supplemental technology grouping. Destination reading, which is used in area schools. Plato Focus, I'm not aware of any local schools that are using it, but they could be. The Waterford Reading Program, which is one that is used locally, and YCAT, I'm not sure about that one either. Then another type of application or a group of applications is called innovative technology, which is in the definition of the authors, when technology is used in a way to teach reading that enables a type of instruction that's not really possible without the technology. For example, one of the programs uses basically things that go on within the brain, and it presents things in a way that are really impossible to do without it. So it's kind of a whole category of technology use that isn't just an add-on or kind of a different adaptation of what we normally do. It's a whole different way of teaching reading. And I'm not sure that any local schools are using any of these. So the 3 specific applications that are named are Fast Forward, Reading Reels, and Lightspan. Then he has a category, or they have a category for computer managed learning, and there was just one specific product that was named, and that's Accelerated Reader, which is used very, very widely in our area. Accelerated Reader is basically a database of books where it's not the books themselves, but a database of book titles that are leveled. So learners take a test to determine their actual reading level, and that channels them to specific titles that would be appropriate for them to select, or at least a range of levels that would be appropriate. After they read the book, they log into their account, they complete a series of questions about that particular book, and they earn points based on the number of questions that they answer correctly. So scores can be accumulated. A lot of schools, classrooms in particular, offer incentives to students who earn a certain number of points, and classrooms compete against each other and different things like that. So that's accelerated reader. And then the last category that was named in the study is what they called comprehensive models, which is computer assisted instruction like the supplemental technology was, but it's used in conjunction with more traditional reading instructions. So the technology is not supplemental to reading instruction, it's used in conjunction with it. So it's all kind of part of the reading instruction that occurs within the classroom. So it's part of the core reading instruction, not an add-on. So one example of that is Read 180, which is used quite a bit locally, and then Writing to Read in Voyager Passport. So the main research question in the study, although it's not stated specifically, is what is the effect of technology on reading outcomes? And within that main question, the authors talk about a couple of kind of sub-questions that they're interested in exploring. And they use two specific words to categorize these sub-questions. They use the word moderator and they use the word mediator. And just to give you a working definition of each one, a moderator is a type of variable that typically represents a characteristic of an individual. So researchers might believe that outcomes could be different based on certain groups of people. For example, boys might benefit more from a certain program than girls, or members of a certain ethnic group might benefit more than members of another ethnic group. So if there's a differential effect of the treatment or program on the outcome, that differential effect that they're examining would be called a moderator. A mediator is a little bit different. It's a type of variable that it kind of acts along with the variable of interest, but it's a little bit different from that. It could impact the outcome and impact it in a slightly different way than the outcome. And I'm not explaining it very well, but in this particular study, they're looking at the type of technology application, which we've already defined, the program intensity, so how often are the students actually working with the program. So it's possible that it may not be the program itself that is impacting an outcome. It might be the fact that they're working with the program for a certain number of minutes per week that's impacting the outcome. That's what the mediator is. It's a variable that works kind of along with the variable of interest to produce some outcome. And so researchers want to be able to determine, is it the variable we're interested in, which in this case would be the reading programs, or is it something that's sort of embedded in the program, like how long we're working with the program. And then they were also looking at several variables related to the design of the study in terms of maybe that impacted the outcome as well. The different moderating variables and mediating variables are listed on page 204 of the article, so you can actually see them spelled out there. And then one last thing that I want to go over, which takes us back to last week's article, is just making sure you understand what the different letters tell you in an output table. So the K is the number of studies that meet the criteria that they're specifying in any given table. So in this case, there were 4 studies about computer managed learning, 4 studies about innovative technology applications, and so on. The ES is the effect size, which is what the meta-analysis actually calculate. So recall that the higher the value, the greater the impact of that particular application. So we are looking for values, higher values are more of an impact. And if we look at the guidelines from last week, zero point 0.2 and lower would really be a very negligible effect. From 0.2 to 0.5, it would be kind of a medium, still a pretty low effect. And then 0.5 to 0.8 would be a medium effect, and above 0.8 would be a large effect. And none of the effect sizes in this entire study are beyond 0.5. So they're all relatively low effect sizes. So if we think about the overall impact of these various reading programs on student outcomes, they're not really all that strong. If we move to the 95% confidence interval area, if you recall from last week, I talked about whether there's a 0 between the lower and the upper values. In this particular table, there are no zeros in the ranges, which indicates that all of them are statistically significant. So even if the effect size is small, there's enough there to tell us it's not just due to chance. It's really due to the fact that use of these various programs doesn't really have a large impact on the outcome. And I'm going to kind of skip over these. I just wanted to briefly mention the Q value. This tells us overall among this group, which is type of intervention in Table 3, overall, was there a significant difference between the different items in this list? The authors state that the p-value of 0.07 is marginally significant, which is it's a little stretch. We really would like the p-value to be less than 0.05 in order to make a claim that it's statistically significant. But what they're trying to say is that there is at least getting close to enough evidence to say that there is a difference between the supplemental types of programs and comprehensive programs and so on. So that's basically what that information tells you. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more information to go on as you read the article and complete the activities for the week. Have a great day.